Welcome to the Dating Advisory Board, Ebong Eka, one of my great friends. Love him to death. A little bit of background on him. He's a leadership entrepreneur and small business expert who regularly appears on MSNBC, Fox News, Fox Business Channel, NBC and CNN. He's an accomplished TEDx speaker, motivational speaker, Huffington Post small business blogger, and Office Depot blogger. But he's also the author of Start Me Up, the No Business Plan Business Plan. Woohoo! I'm so excited that you're here today.
I'm so glad to be here. I mean, I remember you had me, you talked about it months ago, and now this is the reality.
I know.
So I'm glad.
I am glad. Thank you so much. So I know your story on how you got to where you are today and how you got to write your book and do amazing things and be very inspiring to a lot of people. I mean, I personally watched your Periscopes, Facebook, very inspiring. I love it.
Thank you.
I need to get a kick in my butt. I'm like, okay, he's right. I'll just read and keep it moving. But so let's go through how you got here.
It's very interesting. I have a base story, then I have all these other stories sprinkled in. So I'm very fortunate to have lived a very good life so far. Still have a crap ton of shit to do, but so I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, to Nigerian parents. My parents used to live in the U.S. Back when my father went to Howard in the '60s, and so when I was a kid, my parents split, and my mom raised 4 kids by herself. Right. She lived in public housing in Toronto, Canada. Still love the 6. Toronto was like my home, but I recently became a U.S. citizen. Now, after that happened, I've always had this dream of playing college basketball, and so I literally, at the age of 12, I remember making that decision. It was on a cold day. I made that decision. And I said, I'm going to play basketball in college. I had friends who didn't think it was possible for them. So for me, I thought it was, and I just, back then there's no internet. And I took the time to. I literally went to a library, got a book, sent about 350 different letters to different colleges randomly in the mail, saved up money, working at McDonald's and multiple jobs, went to a basketball camp, ended up being left behind in a Greyhound station in Cleveland, Ohio. It was right next to, I remember, Cleveland State University. A 17-year-old, I was like holding my bag, sleeping on a bench for a night because they forgot to pick me up at the camp. Like, there's all these different things that have happened to me, but I always mention that all out of all the BS and bullshit stuff that happened, those were inconveniences to what the bigger goal was. So after that happened, I ended up going to Calvin College, played Calvin. Part of the dream was to continue playing. I ended up playing professionally in Europe for a couple of years, in Switzerland, in England. I was fortunate enough to go to North Korea, Iran, and other countries as well. And then accounting was my undergrad, became a CPA. And as of what I do now when it comes to motivational and speaking and leadership, it was just a normal progression of thinking about my life, but also more importantly, it was also understanding the importance of finality of life, like we're all gonna die. And if people are watching, listening, I don't mean this in a bad way, reality, we're all gonna die. So if that's gonna happen, why not have the best experiences I can? All the shit that we worry about tends not to be as important. Right. And so being in a CPA and having an accounting background, I've always been into entrepreneurship, and that ended up leading to the book Start Me Up.
Start Me Up. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what the book entails. Okay. So how do we start me up?
It's funny. That's a great title. My publisher is so smart. So I, very similar, how I wrote that book, the impetus behind the book was I had a friend. I used to write business plans back in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was overseas, but also before I went. And in the .com days. And so that was the thing to do, write a business plan, and everybody was trying to pitch ideas, back of a napkin type crap. And so after that experience, I pitched a bunch of VCs. I have a lot of experiences in pitching and pitching ideas and stuff like that in the tech space. And 8-9 years later, I had a friend who really wanted to start a business, and she knew my background and asked me to help her with the business plan. I said, no, how about you write it and then I'll review it for you and give you some pointers. And but the thing is, she came back to me 9 months later. And literally I told her, you could have had a baby in the 9 months time you wasted writing this stupid ass business plan that nobody's going to read. And the reason I know that is because I went through that. Bankers don't read them, investors don't read them, it's all bullshit, nobody reads it, it doesn't matter. Literally the first line of the book is, your business plan is bullshit, for the most part. And so it doesn't really matter. And so, but there's an easier way. And so I whittled that down, my experiences, to 4 major areas, and I call those the 4 S's. It's structure, strategy, systems, and sales. And if you focus on those 4 areas in any business, it doesn't matter if you're starting, doesn't matter if you're currently in business, focus on those 4 major areas, you have a better chance of success and actually growing a business.
And then so let's move that into how we could apply that into the dating world, right? So that's because now dating can be overwhelming, especially with all these online apps, and it gets to be overwhelming if you're just kind of coming into this, if you had been dating or not, or just what would you give as your dating strategy?
The things in life, everything are tools. I've had lots of friends who use Bumble and Tinder and all this stuff, and it's the same narrative. Like whatever you decide to use is predicated on your beliefs, system, and structure, right? So if you're like, oh, apps suck, I'm not going to use them, it's because there's something else underneath that statement. It's not the apps. It's the fact that I'm not comfortable doing this, or I tried it before and it failed. So the first thing you have to do is get rid of your limiting beliefs when it comes to in the dating world. Same thing happens in business. People always say, oh, business plans don't work and real estate is bullshit. But they're saying that based on something that they have no idea about. They're not talking to any experts. Maybe they bought a house and they lost their shirt on it, and so as a result of that, they're like, that's their blanket belief.
Right.
So I've met people a good friend of mine who lives close to here, and we were talking about it, and he was in a dating pool again, and it's the same thing. Apps are bullshit. I'm not using it. And I said, look, dude, these are tools. This is where we are today. Yeah. Absent of you walking down to the mall in Washington, the monuments, and saying hi to every single woman you run into,
right.
Use the damn apps.
Right.
Plain and simple. So
you have to adapt to the technology, because now we are a technology-driven community, and you just better get on board, because it's going to be like that in business, and it's going to be just like that in the dating world.
Exactly. And so let me give you another analogy. So people will say things like, oh, I need a new site, all this stuff, I need to do all these systems. They're hiding behind the systems, and they think it's tactics, but the underlying principle is you're selling to a human being. As a business, you're selling to a person. I don't care what the hell you sell. You're selling to an actual person who's going to write you a check.
Right.
Just like same thing to when it comes to dating. You're selling yourself to a person, right? And you have to be able to sell who you are, what you stand for, and just core principles of what you're about and what you're looking to do. So there's literally so much analogy between whether the business world and also dating that a lot of people don't really see unless you go a level below. Right. But again, all the stuff, whether it's a book, whether it's a site, whatever the hell it is, they're all tactics. But what do you stand for? What are you about? What are you trying to accomplish? What's your results?
And be authentic, because it's going to come out anyway.
Exactly. It's like an interview. Same thing.
Right.
You interview for a job, you interview for a date. 6 months later, I'm going to know you're crazy or not. You're going to know if I'm crazy. You're going to know what my idiosyncrasies are.
Right.
Same thing in a business. You have a client to be a pain in the ass, but at the beginning, they're like, I want to work with you. This is fun, fantastic. And later on, they're straight up assholes. So. Right. So that at the end of the day, it comes down to that.
I always say, you're just trying to find people in business and personal whose demons play well with your demons.
I like that.
You like that?
I like that.
But I think it's true. I have people who tend to get discouraged. And this is where I think that you've helped a lot of people. And I know you've helped me when I've kind of gotten down in the dirt about stuff, and I, just not in a good place when I thought things were going to work out, and they may have in a business or wasn't moving fast enough, or you get discouraged in the abyss of the dating world, right? Or, I have girlfriends tell me all the time, like, I just don't want to do it. I'm just not going to date. Huh? Like, you're a very successful, really pretty, fun, attractive woman. You're just going to throw the towel in, like, I'm done. Because one guy made cancel a date. Yep. So how would you, in business, you can't just give up. If you don't want something great, you have to work for it.
Yep.
Right?
Every single person you've seen achieve greatness has come from a tremendous amount. There's a price to pay for greatness, right? And so let's talk about evolution. I'm a huge fan of evolutionary psychology and behavioral economics and the mindset of things. And because again, if you don't believe something's possible, you don't have a vision of what it's supposed to look like, all the other shit doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I tell you. It doesn't matter if Jesus came and said, hey, do this. And if you don't believe in Jesus, it's irrelevant, right? So when it comes to whether it's dating, whether it's a business or an idea, and you feel discouraged, the point is a lot of people are too vague in what they want. So they say they want more money. They say they want freedom. But what does that mean, right? More money can be $1. More money can be $10. It could be $100,000. It could be 10 million, right? And so knowing what your target is increases the likelihood of you actually getting it. So every time I've had something that's measurable, I've always been able to actually attain it. So, someone like your friend, I've met people like that too, who are like, I don't want to date, dating's bullshit, and they just blanket general statement, all guys, all girls, it sucks, all that stuff. It's because, again, they hit a bad experience, something bad happened to them, and that has framed the rest of their lives as to that particular area, right? But as human beings, we are meant to be companions. We're meant look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Those basic needs have to be met: food, water, shelter, and self-actualization is something that we'll never get to. A lot of people don't get to, but you want companionship. It doesn't matter if it's sexual, romantic, but you want to be with somebody. So your friend saying, it's bullshit, I don't want to date, that's a bunch of shit. She's going home wishing she had a dude.
Of course.
She's going home looking at you and your relationship saying, I wish I had a guy like him. She's looking at her friends, I wish I had a guy like him. I don't want to be alone on a Friday. All that stuff. But she tells herself a story so that she can literally substantiate why she is where she is.
Right.
And it's the same thing in a business. People like businesses don't work, this kind of business. They have no idea what they're talking about. Right? They had one bad experience. They saw something that didn't work, and then all of a sudden, that sets the tone of their life. That's ridiculous. I can't deal.
I know. I'm just sick of it. I can't stand it. Hashtag. but no, the one thing is I met this woman and we were talking and had a conversation, and she said, I don't know what's going on. I keep dating the same type of guys and they keep treating me X, Y, and Z, and I don't know why I'm still dating these men. And I said, well, you need to look within you. And you need to have that look in the mirror and see if there's that ghost in the mirror that you want to see, or see the reflection that you want to see back.
Yep.
Right? Or really take time. If you come out of a relationship or whatever this thing may be, just make sure that you feel good about who you are. Right? And that's in business too. I mean, especially because it's coming down from the top. So if the CEO of a company isn't happy, you're always going to be stressed, but if you could feel the energy if it's good or bad. I'm a huge believer in that.
Feedback is huge in general, any part of life, and those who do well, I've noticed in my life, every time I fail, I wasn't paying attention to the feedback. I wasn't paying attention to what was out there. So your friend, if she is in a situation where she is constantly dating the same guy, she's a common denominator. Those guys don't know each other. Maybe they do, I don't know. But they don't know each other for the most part. And so she's a common... Yeah, it'd be kind of weird. Like sister wives.
Right.
That's kind of weird. But anyways, they would, they don't know each other. So it's all her. So there's something about her energy, where she is, that's exhibiting that. Or maybe the way she sees herself allows her to be with somebody like that.
Or maybe she, thinks, I have to be a certain way to attract a certain type of guy who, in my mind, I've manifested that's what you're supposed to be. I always joke, I want to say, like, Cinderella, I do want to write an article about this. Like, Cinderella, your parents told you the wrong story. Okay? Because it's you. Don't ever rely on somebody else to make your own dreams come true or have their dreams come true. I mean, you need, and I hate to say it, you have to, look out for number one.
Yeah.
I mean, in the end of the day, and then build on that for other things. But if you're not looking inwardly towards yourself on how you could be a better person, how you could strive to do well for others, and it takes it takes an advisory board. Yep. And I really firmly believe you should have a dating advisory board and a business advisory board.
I completely agree.
Sometimes they're the same.
I completely agree. And if you think about it, well, the first thing is we talked about Cinderella. That's all some bullshit. And I say this to say this.
It's like no Prince Charming's coming, sister.
As a kid, you're taught these narratives growing up. Men are taught one thing, women are taught one thing. You look at wedding rings. Okay, granted that someday I'll be doing the same thing, but it's whatever. I'm not going to change that. I don't care. It's for her, not me. So, but with that being said, we're taught these things growing up that they become part of the narrative of our culture, right? And so Cinderella's Prince Charming, or there's a guy supposed to pay for everything, but we don't understand the nuances of working together, how two people are. Right. The second point I want to make, you mentioned earlier about the importance of looking within. I always say this: you need to be the CEO of your own life. Right, and it's kind of like, and that goes into, I gave a keynote speech a couple weeks ago where I talked about the importance of being your own leader. Like we can all be leaders. Unfortunately, we're taught that leadership means someone has to give us permission. So some CEO of a company says, you're going to be the leader of this team. But in reality, you got to lead yourself. You got to lead your ass first, right? Because if you don't, you're just going to turn into a lemming, and eventually that leads to apathy. Right. So that becomes apathy in dating. That becomes apathy in your business. That becomes apathy in dealing with your clients and your customers and the kind of value you bring. At the end of the day, value has to be exchanged. It doesn't matter. I don't care if it's money for a customer. I don't care if it's love and relationship. There's value exchange. You do something, the other person does something, and it's unconditional. You just do it in exchange. It just happens as part of the exchange, right? And if you don't, that becomes servitude. That becomes, slave type of servitude. It's and you see that a lot with people who rely on each other too much in a very destructive way.
Right.
The same thing happens with a customer. You have a customer, one of the biggest. Say you have one client, and that's the biggest client you have.
Yeah.
They turn you into an asshole. You become a dog, and you just whatever they call, you answer. You're running around, flying all over the country, because if they cut the contract, you're done.
Yeah. Yeah. You bring up a really good point. I talk about value versus loyalty, right? If you're not providing value to your client or your partner, there is no loyalty, and they're there really shouldn't be. Because there's 30 other customers that are waiting to take over my customer, or different vendors or suitors, and so how are you providing value? What are you doing above and beyond? Like in business, how are you keeping your customer? Like we just had a customer event last night with TN. So we partnered up, collaboration.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
And how do we help our clients?
Yeah.
I've been in the same company for 11 years.
Yeah.
When we do installations, we do BenCom cupcakes.
Yep.
Right? And
That's awesome.
it's something, how are you standing out? How are you standing in front of them? Sending an email, it's good.
Yeah.
But like, what are you doing above and beyond?
Yeah. It's the same thing with dating. You take the business, I'll take the dating side. It's the same thing. It's knowing, listening to what your partner wants. I don't care what it is. Like there's two areas. Is what we think our partner wants, and it's actually if we're paying attention what they actually want. And a lot of times it's not that complicated. It's not a shit ton of money or anything else. It's just, I want you to notice, you like tennis, give me a fucking tennis racket, signed by Steffi Graf or whatever.
Right.
But because it happened, I'm not saying you got to sell your house and fly over there. I'm not saying anything. You know what I mean? Like it's something small. Like, I know you talked about this a couple months ago. It'd be cool if I got this for you. I got this for you. And like, holy cow, you actually were listening.
Yeah. Or write a note.
Write a note. Yeah, just a basic note. I've done that. I do, like, as a result of all, like, seeing and paying attention. And like you said, we talked about different relationships. Every relationship I've ever been in, I've learned something from it. The good ones and the bad ones.
But I think that's true in everything.
And you have to.
You have to.
Many don't, and that's the problem that they run into. They don't learn from the mistake. Again, part of having
or they
good
wanted
feedback.
to blame others for their own personal mistakes. Oh, well, you did this. No, you did that. You need to take responsibility for it. Now, everyone needs to take, in every kind of relationship, there is responsibility on both hands. It's just how one deals with it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, maybe I did do something wrong. You're right. I did something wrong. I'm sorry for that. I'm
sorry. And you know how hard I hear is for people to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And actually mean it and be genuine.
Yeah.
Right?
Not like, I apologize for how you feel.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry for the way you feel.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Yeah, that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, and it's like, why did you even say it? Like, now you just made it worse.
Yeah. Definitely.
Now you just went more in the doghouse. So when you're talking about, let's talk a little bit about quality of prospects, right? We're talking about quality of prospects in business and in the dating world. How would you go about that? We talked a little bit about, I call it the tribe or the dating advisory boards, but so give us some examples, like networking, or how would you?
It's very similar. It's very similar. Like we talked about, from a dating perspective, we talked about, Bumble and Tinder and all these tools, right? They're tools. Everything's a tool. So whether you go to a networking event from the business side, it's just switch business cards, you get the new business networking app, or go to a business networking site. It's all the same crap. It's very similar to garbage in, garbage out, right? So you have the first thing I always tell people is this: you have to know your target. You have to know what you want. You have to know what the number's supposed to look like, because then you can work backwards and reverse engineer what it's supposed to actually look like.
Reverse engineer hashtag.
You have to. You got to, and a lot of people don't. And so what ends up happening, because you don't reverse engineer, you have no idea. You just say, I want this client. Why? Like, how much? What do you want to sell them, or him or her? What kind of relationship do you want? From a dating perspective, is your ideal partner the same religion, the same kind of money? Like, what do they like? What do they care about? There's also what are their interests, but I think that's fleeting sometimes. But all the, like, what are their core beliefs of things? How is their mind opening up? So for me, I had to go through other relationships to understand that these are the questions I should be asking. And then my current relationship now is an amazing woman. She's phenomenal. And we have a 14-year age difference, but we are literally on the same plane. Yeah. And she literally is the same level where I am mentally, where I see things. I can't wait to meet her. Yeah, she's freaking phenomenal. Her name's Laura. She's phenomenal. And being on the same level of knowing, like, what supporting, like, we support each other. We think we understand. We see the message. I can tell her what I'm thinking, what I want to do, and different ideas I'm working on. She's like, okay, I see where that's going. Have you thought about this? I respect her feedback, and a lot of people I don't.
Well, I think that's you said respect.
Yes, I respect your feedback.
And I think in a lot of relationships, there may be a tendency not to have respect, or maybe you're not showing it enough, or be quick to say, "Oh, that's not right," or
and that is an ego-driven thing. So you have that ego issue coming in. And I understand, especially if you're a dude. If you're a dude, it's you have, I'm gonna take care of the woman, I'm gonna take care of the house. That's what I do. I get it, and that's something that still happens. But again, the right partner supports that need of yours.
Well, it has to be in alignment, right?
And it's an alignment, yes.
Right, it's alignment. So like if someone wants that, that's great.
Yep.
So but if someone that is, like, no, I want to do X, Y, and Z, and they're like, no, that's just like
it's like putting diesel fuel in your car. It doesn't, and it's not a diesel engine. It doesn't work. No. Like they're both in the same pump, but it's not the same thing. So you can't.
Not the same flow.
Not the same flow. Yeah, your car gets jacked up, and then you have to buy a new car. So it's the same thing. But too many people try really hard to make it. I gotta make it work, and I don't want to be a failure. You're not a failure if you learn from something, right? It's a failure if you continue fighting things to keep something together because you think you have to, right? If you do it for children, I know people do it for children. Like your children will know. I knew my parents had problems, even though they never told me shit, right? And people have, something won't be settled.
Yeah, it's in your core. Yeah, it's in your core. Your intuition is just, we need to lead more by that, by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
But when you say, you made a good point about, I always talk about putting it out there in the universe, right? So when you're talking about, because if you really truly believe in it and you have that mindset, right? And I do want to come back to this so remind me about being athletes and how that changes the game on certain things. But when you're putting the core values that you want in someone, like write it out, put it, but not superficially.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to look like 30 years down the road?
Yes.
What are the 50 years down the road? Like, are you going to be able to, handle a certain situation well together? How is this going to work? So I think that people should do that. I mean, just if they're on the date, if they're starting a list of what they want, and then write your profile that's you.
Yeah.
Don't write it as someone else.
Yeah.
Just be authentic.
Yeah. Because a lot of people aren't happy with, not happy. They're not sure who they are and what they are is enough. They don't know if they're enough.
But you are enough. I mean,
I agree with that. For some reason, they don't think they are.
And then they need to listen to your podcast, and they need to watch your stuff because it's inspiring.
I appreciate that.
No,
it's very simple. It's obviously what's simple is not always easy to do. So it's understanding. The one thing you mentioned which was key, and I mentioned this earlier, was the importance. And we talked about being athletes and what we kind of do, and I know exactly where you're going with this, but it's important to be very specific. You have to have specificity. Like, I can't stress that enough. If you don't get anything from this damn interview that you've had with me, anybody who's listening and watching, they have to get the fact that you have to be specific in what you want. If you're not specific, you will quit. You'll settle. You will make excuses. Right? You'll take shortcuts because you don't know what something's supposed to look like. So if you know my goal is to build $100 million business. Instinctively that's not going to take 2 years. So you won't take shortcuts. You won't take some bullshit client because there's supposed to be some type of organic growth, right? Same thing with dating. My goal is to get married. I need to find somebody who fits these important things that are non-negotiables, right? That are deal breakers. And I'm not going to settle on that. If it's religion for you, fine. This is America. You can do whatever the hell you want, right? But you have to make sure you're non-negotiable. Don't get married and a year or two later, man, she's Muslim. I'm this. I don't understand. Like, dude, you knew that she didn't lie to you, right? You just decided to say, I can make this work for whatever reason. You rationalized to yourself, right? So you settled. And so as a result, being specific is very important. And if you don't have that, and going back to the mindset piece, there's this acronym that I teach when it comes to leadership. I teach employee leadership and personal leadership, and it's about I call it VICE. So the first V is vision. And I had a feeling that as athletes, we visualize a lot. I visualize a lot. I visualize all sorts of stuff, everything.
3 degrees down, I always say it.
Exactly.
And people are like, I was at a conference and they were recording me. They're like, tell us you're 4 degrees down. And I was like, really? Okay. I mean, I love these girls. It was fun because I wasn't expecting it, but it's true. Yep. You visualize the shots. Okay, I'm hitting here. I'm doing a forehand down the line, cross court, come up to the net, boom, points over, next, and let's keep it moving. Yep. Well, it's strategy.
Yep.
So I think in a lot of ways, having that kind of going through sports and having that mental toughness has given me an advantage in business and in personal, because you have to be strong. You cannot there's going to be haters.
Yep.
You talk about that a lot.
Yep.
People are going to say really nasty things to you, and they shouldn't be on text messages.
Yep.
So
when that happens to me, when I get hate, I know I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
I know I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Hashtag
not easy.
winning.
Yeah, I'm winning. It's not easy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's
No.
easy. I'm not saying if someone hates you, like, oh, it's okay, it's easy. It's hard to deal. I'm at a point now where I can deal, no problem. For the most part, no problem, depending on what they say. But for the most part, I can deal. But the importance, of visualization is huge, because again, you have to. I mean, there's been studies that have shown this. You literally have to train your brain, as well as you training your body.
Right.
They're both the same in essence.
It's a muscle.
It's a muscle,
right?
And so you have to lift. You have to eat right. It's all the same shit. So you have to make sure your brain's in the same capacity. You can't have doubt. You look at people in the military, police officers who are well trained. People who are well trained, they're drilled. They're not just walking around shooting once a week. Like, everything's drilled. The way they hold a weapon, the way they do everything, it's a drill. Very similar to what you're doing, but they're seeing things and recording it, in their memory, in their brain. So when something happens, I've been here before, right? I'm not going to panic. The average person panics. So when you have these mass shootings and all these massacres, all this stuff happening, most people panic. That's usually why they end up dead. I mean, that's not true, but I mean, a lot of times, especially in small spaces, because instinctively you want to run, right? But you're like, I don't want to run, I'm freezing, and you have that flight or fright, and you kind of stand there and then you're getting picked off, right? But that's normal. That's what humans. That's what we do. That's normally what we do in our brains. Not our brain. Our body does that. And so it's the same thing with visualization. And if you see yourself being in dating, if you see yourself being with somebody, my significant other is going to look like this. My girlfriend, boyfriend is going to look like this. And it may change.
Right.
But you got to see it, or else you'll settle for anything.
Right.
Right. So.
Yeah, and what do you say to those people? Because I've heard a lot of examples where people are saying, "Well, I have to deal with someone hard, difficult at work in business, right? You have the haters at work, and then the person you have to turn it off." So, but there may we go back about mental toughness. Like, how do you tell them to really just ignore them? Like, if they say something bad, it's just within themselves. There's something that they're not happy with.
Yes.
Right. It has nothing really to do with you. It's just a reflection of themselves.
Yeah.
And so I think. How I would just deal with it would just be ignore it, just ghost them. They don't exist.
Yeah. Right? That's a very good strategy to take when it comes to dealing with haters. I mean, simply put, I try to fill my life with people who matter, who are positive. Where I don't have time, I don't have the there's no way I have the time, because I have so many things going on. I have so many amazing people in my life. I don't have the time. I couldn't even respond if I wanted to, right? And I'm not going to take time out of my day to do that. But also, you mentioned something about something that's inside of you. There's congruency in our lives. So when you find, and this is a term I like to use, when you see somebody who's crazy, there's congruency in the craziness. So they're not just crazy at home or on the phone or on the computer. It's at their job. It's the way they speak, the foods they eat. Do they sleep or do they not sleep? The people that they date in their lives. It's all congruent. Everything's congruent.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, we're human. We don't have the ability. We don't have the ability to hide different things. We can't hide. We can't be two people. Because the people who are, they're actors and they go crazy and they're on drugs because they're literally becoming multiple people. It's hard to have multiple personalities. So it's easy for us to revert back to who we are. So with that being said, it's very simply put, you have to have. If you notice somebody who's hating you, I fill my life with positive messages. I'm always listening to inspirational stuff all the time, all day long, lectures, books, reading, all the time.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, and surround yourself with positive people.
You have to.
Yeah, and if you ever find yourself in that situation in the dating world or in the business world, just go to your core group and just listen to podcasts and just fill your mind with positivity. They talk about the gratitude journal.
Yep.
A lot of our friends do that, and they listen and they find their chi in the morning and they meditate.
I do that every morning.
Yeah.
For 5 minutes, meditate. I say what I'm grateful for and I meditate.
Right.
Because how you start your day matters.
Right.
I work on the wrong side of the bed. Bullshit. You chose to.
Yeah.
Whatever you're going through, somebody else is going through it too, or worse.
Or worse. Yeah, I was just going to say or worse.
You know what? Again, my premise is at the end of the day, you're going to die. And do I want my last thoughts to be some bullshit that somebody said to me, someone's mean to me, someone online who's a troll? And fuck all that. I had a friend whose wife died. I saw her a week before she died of cancer, 34-year-old from breast cancer metastasized throughout her body. Friends who died. The week after that, my dog died. I had to put him to sleep myself, hold him, and while I put him to sleep. All this shit happening. This happened a couple years ago. And so the point of my story, from that point forward, I realized a simple principle. Look, we're going to die. It's going to happen. Everything we do in life, someone died doing it. And so what legacy am I going to leave while I'm here? So my whole goal is legacy from this point forward. Screw everything else. I don't give it. Like, it doesn't. I don't give a shit, because it doesn't matter. Legacy.
Yeah, no, that's interesting you say that, because when they were talking about, well, why did you start the dating advisory board, and what kind of brought that to it? And you talked about your friend who passed away from cancer. My best friend Jill passed away from cancer in February, and she had a nonprofit, still has it, and it's called jillswish.org.
Wow.
And she was the funniest person. She would just light up a room. I mean, she just had this amazing thing. And I thought, how do I help keep her, out there in my mind? And she said, oh, you should go out there and do it, Jen. Come on. Well, she called me Clack. Okay. I mean, that was that. But yeah, she's like, come on, Clack, you got to do it. And I'm like, okay. We were just talking about stuff like that. But yeah, so tell us something, some of the upcoming events or things that you're working on while we wrap up here, and how people get in touch with you.
Awesome. So you can find me at ebongeka.com. It's my main site. You can also learn more about what I do. Economics is the name of a leadership and training company. It's my last name, EKANOMICS.com. We focus on your mission, mindset, and your money, and that's kind of what I talk about, what I train. The main part of what I talk about and train is about leadership, personal leadership I mentioned earlier, and all organizations, individuals accordingly. And I have something called Economics Academy, which I'm launching. It's a subset of this book. So you can learn more on ebongeka.com, but it's a subset of that book where I take a handful of entrepreneurs, service-based entrepreneurs, and I walk them through the gamut of that book, but with additional strategies. So help them formalize their idea, help them price their product, create products and price them, especially if it's info-based, and then show them the systems that I use to generate income. And then last, after that, it's social, especially Facebook ads and ad platform, how to use that, how to generate leads, and how to close them.
That's awesome. I'm so excited. I can't wait for that.
Thank you.
Well, thanks again. I'm so glad you were able to come on the show today. I'm so thankful.
Me too.
Yay!
I love this. This is
fun.
awesome.
It was fun. All right, thanks. Thanks, guys.